What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, the number one Knicks fan in the world. And what a night of opening basketball did we have. Boy, that was a joy. I know yesterday or a couple days ago, we had the first opening night. It was only two games, though. We had the Bucks and the Nets. We had the Lakers versus the Warriors. It was exciting. It was good to see, and it was some good games. But last night felt like the first official night where it was more than two games. League Pass was jumping. I'm flipping the channels. I got my TV on. I got my laptop on. I got the iPad on. I'm watching the Pacers versus Hornets. I think they were the first game to come on. Then I'm watching the Bulls versus the Pistons. Then my Knicks and Celtics came on. Like, it was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy night. We had some big performances. We had some comebacks. We had some blowouts here and there. We got some guys who had some incredible debuts for their new teams all over the place. I'm trying to think. Okay, the first game I can say that I tuned into was the Pacers versus Hornets. It was a game that I was a bit excited for just because I'm a fan of what the Hornets have built over the last few years. Lamelo is just super exciting to watch, especially last night he was. But in general, just a guy that likes to push the tempo, a lot of fancy passes, and I think the weapons that they have around him, Miles Bridges with the lobs, you have Gordon Hayward who can knock down shots, make a couple plays himself. And then on their full healthy side, you would have Terry Rozier, but he wasn't available and didn't play. But they're just a nice, exciting, young league pass team that I think everyone enjoys to watch whenever they have a chance. And on the flip side, they were playing a Pacer team that maybe isn't so up and down like the Hornets themselves, but when you look at them from a talent aspect up and down on the roster, they have a lot of good, skilled, high IQ basketball players on the Indiana Pacers side. I was super excited to watch my boy Chris Duarte. If you follow me, you know I've been a big Chris Duarte guy for a while now. Wanted my Knicks to get him so bad. I was so disappointed to hear that he was jumping up in the mock drafts on people's boards, big boards or whatnot, because I really wanted him to fall to the Knicks. He had a hell of a start to his NBA career. Out of the gate was shooting the ball lights out. Something that I think we all, people that scouted, projected him to be able to do from day one. Guard and catch and shoot the basketball, especially from behind the arc. But Sabonis out the gate, playing like an all-star. You forget how good Sabonis is because he's one of those names that get lost in the shuffle. We have so many good big men in this league, great big men. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid are pushing and leading the charge. But then you even have like a Karl-Anthony Towns who kind of himself gets lost in the shuffle. Availability has been an issue for him over the last few years. And then he's playing in Minnesota, lack of success. So when you think about all the big men, like Sabonis is high in talent. This guy is an all-star for a reason. Incredible footwork. He came out the gate hooping. But in that game, you know, during the first half, the Pacers kind of showed their age, just a little bit more mature brand of basketball. They kind of extended the lead. So by the time that game got to halftime, a couple other games started, I kind of migrated and moved away from that game. And I got a tweet from somebody because they were asking, like, man, P, you tweeting about so many different games at once. 1 minute you're tweeting about Zach LaVine's turnaround jumper. Then you're tweeting about Julius Randle's step back. And then you're tweeting about Brandon Ingram. Like, how many games are you watching? So I explained my situation. I got the TV on with ESPN. I got my laptop going on with League Pass. And then I got my iPad showing me the local station that shows the Bulls games. Then somebody, replied like, yo, you got to tune into that Hornets game. And I was like, I was, but they was getting dragged. Then I checked, and the Hornets are up 87-86. And apparently LaMelo Ball started spazzing. He already was having a good game. He started spazzing. The Hornets come back, so I tuned into that. That was like a boxing match. The Hornets hit a three. Pacers knocked them back out with a swing, and they hit their own three. Then they'll score 4 in a row, and the Hornets come back, score 4 in a row. Very, very exciting game. That the Hornets ultimately came out with the edge. LaMelo, 30-plus points. I think he had like 9 and 7 to go along with that. Sabonis played phenomenal. Like I said, Chris Duarte was good. They're missing Karis LeVert. But I like what I saw from both teams. The Pacers are going to be an interesting team going forward because they're going to be so hard to gauge because they're as good. They're good enough to keep up with anybody on any given night. but they're also a team that's capable of having such a big lead over the Hornets and losing that game. So it's like you can see the Pacers and be like, man, they have like 6 seed potential. But then they do something like blow a lead, and even though it's the first night, we're going to overreact a bunch. It's the first night. We want to overreact. We've been away from basketball for a while. We deserve to overreact for a while, for a minute. Then they blow a lead like they did today on a younger team like the Hornets, and you're like, this is exactly why they could potentially be a play-in team again, even at full strength. So we'll see. But that was a great start for me. The Bulls versus the Pistons, I really liked that game. The Bulls, that was a very good opening game for them, in my opinion. The Bulls had a hell of a preseason. They were so exciting to watch. They were undefeated. Everything was flowing. Everything looked good. But this first night against a team that on paper is a lot lesser than them, a lot less talented, I'll say, the Detroit Pistons, they made the Chicago Bulls earn that win. They barely got out of there with the win. All night the Pistons were hanging on and refusing to give up the lead. The Bulls came out like a new team. I can't say that the Bulls were necessarily bad at all, but they came out looking like a brand new put together team. A lot of guys still, not used or fully acclimated to what's going on. A lot of bad communication. I think the Bulls have a high-end potential on the defensive side of the basketball, though. I would say that. Now, did they play to their fullest potential? And are it's going to be a given? Am I guaranteeing that they're going to be a high-end defensive team? No, but I do see the potential, or I did see the potential. Granted, first game and against the Pistons, I did see stretches where I'm like, this Bulls team may not be great, but I think they could be better than people project them to be on the defensive side of the basketball. They have a bunch of guys who aren't known necessarily for their defense. Zach LaVine is known as a defensive liability, but I think it's just because he hasn't been on successful teams. Vucevic isn't known as a defensive center. We glorify and talk about him so highly because he's the guy that can give you a double-double, 20 points, mid-range, three-point shot, can give you 4 or 5 assists. He's an offensive, well-rounded big man. That's why he's an all-star. So we don't talk about his defense or know him for defense. Same thing with DeMar DeRozan. But I think they have a lot of size. I think they have a lot of guys who are gifted athletically that when they are tuned in to have to lock in and play defense, they're going to be more than capable. And I think they have a lot of versatility. So when you have Zach, Lonzo, DeMar on the perimeter, and then you have your front court being Patrick Williams, who is typically a 3, but the modern NBA allows him to be a 4, and then you have Vucevic, and even off the bench you have Caruso, who's in there in almost every situation. He's stripping the ball, he's diving, poking it out from people. They have some things there that I think can work. Lonzo was all over the place. Those guards can switch amongst each other. Patrick Williams can switch. They're real gritty. Bulls bench is terrible. Ayo, hometown kid, shout out to Ayo. He came in and gave them a spark. They're gonna have to find a way to make that bench be utilized a lot more. I don't know if I'm a fan of that small lineup that they had in the second unit. I did like Billy Donovan allowing DeMar DeRozan to be the starter that stays in with the second unit. It's going to be able to give DeMar DeRozan some groove, some momentum, and just some consistency, so a rhythm. It allowed him to build up a rhythm that he can have throughout the game, because in that first unit, Zach LaVine should be the commanding number 1 option. And then rightfully so, you kind of have Vucevic fall in place as the number 2. So DeRozan could potentially, out the gate, be difficult to find a rhythm, because I think you want Zach as your number 1 option. Vucevic has to be your number 2 just because you want that in and out brand of basketball. It just gives you a much better balance to have a number 1 guy on the perimeter. Your number 2 is on the inside. That just makes everything else around the entire starting lineup fall in place. Inside out opens up the floor. Now Lonzo is getting looks. If Vucevic is having to get double team, it's just better than having 2 primary guys on a wing trying to be your first 2 options. So I do like that for DeMar DeRozan. Allow him to get some rhythm. But the Bulls are going to be good, man. The Bulls are going to be good. I knew they would win this game, But I definitely was happy that they had like a wake up call out of the gate, because I think it's important that new teams that are freshly put together, like the Bulls, don't have a false reality that they're just going to wake up, come in, and just beat anybody. Like, this was a good message from the Pistons of like, hey, we're the Pistons. We don't have playoff aspirations. Our fan base might be delusional a little bit and hoping, that's every fan base. But in reality, they're not a playoff team. They're a young team with some talented guys. But even they pushed you to the limit to where you had to play every single minute with your starters, no rest, and you had to go in there and earn a win. That's what the Eastern Conference is going to be like. Same thing with the teams in the West. Every night is going to be a literal dogfight, and you're going to have to earn every single win on most nights. There's only a couple teams off the top of my head where I look at them and I say, yeah, you can walk in there and kind of write yourself a win before you even play. Other than that, everything else is going to be a dogfight, and it's going to be so close as far as standings, wins and losses in each conference, that it's going to mean a lot. It's going to mean a lot. I didn't mean to spend that much time on that game, but that was an important game for me as a viewer to watch that new put together Bulls team have to fight and claw against a lower talented, lower level Detroit Pistons team. It was just a good sign and a good message to them to know every night is going to kind of be like that. No matter how much people talk about you in articles or on TV or how much they hyped up their preseason, the reality is, y'all not the Harlem Globetrotters or the 96 Bulls. You're going to have to come with it. Lonzo's going to have to be better, just as far as being involved offensively. But I think that'll work itself out over the course of the season. The other game that I watched, my Knicks versus Celtics. Incredible game. If I had one wish, right, it would be that these two teams meet up in the playoffs and give us a 7-game series. I'm a Knicks fan, number one Knicks fan in the world. Self-titled, because I know it's a lot of other Knicks fans out there that love the Knicks enough to call themselves the same thing, number one Knicks fan in the world. But I have to give credit when it's due. The Boston Celtics, before this game, I've been saying the Boston Celtics are a really good put-together team. I love the fact that they're coming in here this year knowing that it's Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then it's the rest of the other guys, right? Years past, there's been like, this false reality of these other guys that aren't really going to be there. Like, they hope that, it was like Kyrie and Marcus Morris, Al Horford, Gordon Hayward. Then they let Kyrie go and they got Kemba. And it was like they always was like waiting on this other third, fourth guy. But the injury bug never let those teams reach its full capacity. So they were kind of always waiting or expecting some impact or some production from something that just wasn't going to be there. Kyrie Irving was not really there for them. Gordon Hayward, throughout his stint, wasn't really there and available for them. And then Kemba Walker, on the last team, they really expected him to be there, but he wasn't there. Now, their two all-star players and two names are going to be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They know that they'll be there. These two guys are usually there for the most part on a consistent level. And then the rest, their third option, is everybody else coming together. And as we saw in this game, they have enough to get the job done. I really enjoyed Udoa putting in the Romeo Langford, starting Grant Williams. Aaron Nesmith got some early minutes. Peyton Pritchard. Those young guys are going to be so key for them throughout the course of the season and going to the playoffs, that the earlier they get their confidence, the better it'll be. Because you can't all of a sudden in game 49 try to play Romeo Langford 27 minutes in a key game if he hadn't done it all year. But the earlier you get that out there, they're comfortable being out there. It doesn't feel new. They're ready. They know the system. They know their role. It's going to pay off in the long run. Granted, they lost this game, double overtime. Jaylen Brown, 46 points. They only lost by 4 points on a night where Jason Tatum probably shot the ball as worse as you'll probably see him shoot it this year. That just shows you they're a really good team. I love the depth that they have. Nobody on this team outside of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are crazy household names, but they're guys that are going to work well with them and do just enough to keep this team competitive to help Tatum and Brown. And it's a night where we didn't see Al Horford. We didn't see Josh Richardson. At some point, those guys will return, and that's going to only make them deeper and better. I don't think I even saw a Cantor touch the floor, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I like what I saw from Robert Williams. Like I said, Grant Williams hit some big shots at the end, and they played really, really well. For my Knicks, Julius Randle didn't miss a beat from the regular season. Obviously, he struggled in the playoffs, but he looked sharp and on point. Evan Fournier, can't say enough about him. I predicted that he would be one of my favorite Knicks in the season, and he came out the gate and made every shot that we needed. That's why that signing was so crucial, because we needed a perimeter presence that can have those type of nights and moments in the Garden, especially in the playoffs. Like that, what he did tonight or last night against the Celtics is exactly what we were missing in the playoffs against the Hawks. And now that we have that, and we still got our depth with Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin is another year, in his career, more comfortable. We have depth, you know what I mean? Legitimate depth. We have shooting. Mitchell Robinson is back. We have interior presence and rebounding and defense. Nerlens Noel is going to come back eventually. Jericho Sims got early minutes in last night's game. The more comfortable and more experience he gets, the more depth we'll have in the big man position. Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose, I think Tom Thibodeau does a perfect balance with those two guys. It feels like we never have a drop-off at that guard position. When Kemba is in, he's shifty enough to always get to the basket and get his shots at any moment. Same thing with Derrick Rose. And they both can fit with the RJs and the Julius Randles and Fourniers of the world. And they even can coexist in the backcourt, Emmanuel Quickley. I just love this team, man. We're deep as hell. We're gritty. We make a lot of tough shots. But even with the tough shots we take, we also generated a lot of easy looks. And it was a sight to see. And I think that's going to be the difference maker for us going forward this year, is instead of having to rely on Julius Randle making all of these tough step back leaning shots that he can make and he did make tonight, it's always going to be much more safer or much more efficient to generate some type of offense to get an open corner look for Fournier, get an open wing look for RJ Barrett. And those were the shots that we got last night, and those ultimately helped us win that game. So that was real dope to see. Other games real quick that I tuned in over the course of the night, the Pelicans and the 76ers. Pelicans looked real solid to be out there without Zion. Devontae Graham hit some shots. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a guy that I raved about all summer. Looks like he's off to a great start. Brandon Ingram, I love the role that he was in where he did a little bit of everything and then had to score. The Sixers, solid as a team. No crazy game from Joel Embiid or anything. They just came out as a group, held it down, and beat a team that they were supposed to beat. So that was a good win for them. DeJounte Murray and the Spurs, the young Spurs, they came out and put the pause on the Orlando Magic. I just love the way that they played. They were everywhere. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker. I'm talking about bodies and arms just waving and stripping and getting steals, running on a break, hitting the corners for threes. They played with a lot of swagger and tempo, and it was good to see it, especially with DeJounte Murray being at the helm, kind of calling the shots. I kind of like the swag of the new young Spurs. It was something that we're not used to seeing, and it was exciting. It was exciting. I kind of got in that game where it reached its highest peak as far as exciting. Guys were running out and dunking, and Devin Vassell at the buzzer beater three at the end of the third quarter. That was real nice. The Timberwolves came out of the gate and really beat down on the Rockets. I will say, first game, Rockets are young, tough, but it was disappointing. I expected the Rockets to be not good, but like be exciting. Jaylen Green struggled. Christian Wood was like okay. Kevin Porter Jr. had like 11 points, 3 assists. It was just bad. It was just all around bad. But the highlight of it was that the Minnesota Timberwolves have a mini big three. That's what I call them on my Timberwolves series that I have on 2K that you can tune into. D'Angelo Russell, Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. Just like my 2K series, they came out, they dominated. Cat had 30, Anthony Edwards had 30, or almost 30, and then D'Angelo Russell had like 22 and 7. Josh Okogie was doing his thing defensively, real active. Malik Beasley out there, Jaden McDaniels. They had a really good game as a team, and I'm happy for them because this gives them some confidence, a good way to start the season. And again, for every team, whether you're young, high talented, low talented, it's important to start off on a high note this year. You do not want to have to play catch up in the standings this year because it's just going to be too crucial. It's going to be so tough, and I think there's a lot of teams on both sides of the conference that can be really, really competitive. But I was happy to see what I saw from the Timberwolves. Cat double-double, I think 30-point double-double out the gate. Incredible note for him to start the season on, and that was real good to see. Wizards and Raptors. Wizards have a lot of depth. I was telling one of the Wizards fans that I was talking to on Twitter, like I liked watching them. They had a lot of depth. Daniel Gafford was in there. Montrezl Harrell. I saw KCP. Bradley Beal was throwing dimes. He threw one to Montrezl Harrell for a dunk. He hit Kuzma for a corner three. Aaron Holiday, Spencer Dinwiddie, the Davis Bertans, Corey Kispert. Like, they have a lot of bodies. Even Rui Hachimura is going to be, is another name. Like, they have a lot of talent and a lot of depth. I think that a lot of people don't talk enough about. Yeah, see, Rui didn't play tonight. That's another body. Thomas Bryant didn't play tonight. That's another body. Kispert didn't play tonight. Like, those are bodies. And even, Denny Avahia, they have a lot of depth, and I think they're going to be sneaky good. Nothing crazy, but I think they can be, I guaranteed that they was going to make the playoffs on a podcast, and I think I'm going to stand by that. Whether it's a play-in, lower 7, 8 seed, that team, I think, has a more than enough chance. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies played well, 37 for Ja. Desmond Bane looked really, really well. Interested to see what they do with Kyle Anderson. He came off the bench. I know he has last year on his deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if they potentially maybe look to trade Kyle Anderson, and is why they probably not starting him. DeAnthony Melton had 20. That was also a surprise to me. But yeah, I think the Kyle Anderson thing is something to watch. Jaren Jackson Jr. I want to see some more from Jaren Jackson Jr. Struggled a little bit, but I want to see over the course of the season him start to solidify himself as the other guy with Ja, so they can have their two guys and we'll just build around these two. But right now it's seeming like Ja's kind of separating from the pack. Desmond Bane is starting to come alive. You know what I mean? Like, just saying, I'm ready to start seeing Jaren Jackson contribute. Cleveland didn't play it bad. I want to say that Lauri Markkanen 10-9, he played small forward. Evan Mobley 17-9-6. He's going to have a hell of a rookie year just because they're playing so many different ways. He's going to be able to showcase a lot of his skills. Tough shooting night for Darius Garland. I was peeping that. But I did like the way that they played. Jared Allen didn't miss a shot from the field. That was super interesting. I turned to the game and I heard like Jared Allen 11 for 11. I was like, whoa, damn. And then the last games for the night, the Nuggets versus Suns. That was a good game until the end. I felt like the Suns were kind of in it. Monty Williams in that fourth quarter, he kind of waited a long time to put the rest of the starters in, like Devin Booker and whatnot. That confused me a little bit. One thing I'll say about the Nuggets is they're going to be good again this year, even without Jamal Murray. They just have that type of team where they have a lot of guys who can step up and do different things. Like PJ Dozier plays well off that bench. Monte Morris, Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green, JaMychal Green look good as a front court in the second unit. But they didn't run a lot of stuff from Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. was super efficient. For a lot of the game, he was like 6 of 7, 2 of 2 from 3 with like 15 points. And I was just like, damn, for him to be as efficient as he is, Will Barton had more shots than him. At one point, Monte Morris had more shots than him. Jeff Green had more shots than him. I'm like, why aren't they like running anything? He was kind of getting his shots just like in the mix, but I didn't see them like run some shit for him. And that was a little bit disappointing. Hopefully that changes because I think we're all excited for this opportunity for Michael Porter to kind of spread his wings. And it wasn't like he was playing bad or missing shit. He was 6 of 7, efficient as hell. With 15 points, I just wanted to see more. But like somebody told me on Twitter, they did win. They did. Will Barton did hit some crazy big shots for them at the end. And then last game of the night, speaking of starting in a hole or playing catch up from behind in the standings, the Trailblazers lost their first game. Granted, it's the first game of the year. They only lost by 3. They did fight to the very end and clawed themselves back. But the Kings really outplayed them for majority of the game. At one point, they were up like 15, almost 18 points in the fourth quarter. Like I said, Portland did come back. Took a while for Norman Powell to start going. Same thing with CJ. Dame didn't have his best shooting night. But listen, Dame has come out and said he doesn't want to leave Portland. I respect him for that. But if that's the case, Portland is going to have to get it together. They cannot have a year. And again, it's the first game. For all I know, they lost this first game. They can win 11 of the next, 12 and be, 11-2, third in the conference. For all I know, but it's going to be very important that this team performs. And if they don't, Portland is going to have to do something. I don't care what Dame is saying, how much he wants to be there. It is, as an NBA fan, starting to get exhausting watching the same Portland Trailblazer team do the same thing where they're good enough to make the playoffs, maybe even good enough to win a round, but we all know as basketball fans, truthfully, that they're not going to do anything other than that. Potentially win a series, and if the stars align and they do get lucky to where they win 2 series, whoever they play in like a conference finals would probably sweep them. And that's just like I said, if the stars align and they really went that far. But even last year we saw them lose without Jamal Murray, to the Nuggets. So I'm wishing them success. I do like their team, but that bench is atrocious. A lot of redundancy, a lot of guys that kind of do the same things. And the Dame and CJ backcourt, I think, it can only go so far. Not want to try to break anything up, because I think both dudes can hoop. I don't think they have not one single drop of beef. But as basketball fans, I think the clock is expiring on that duo and that current team, and it would be best for both parties to find some solution to split ways, and maybe you trade CJ, Ben Simmons, whatever, I don't know. But I think if CJ were traded for a Ben Simmons and went to a Philadelphia team, he may have a little bit more opportunity to spread his wings in a backcourt that he controls versus being in a backcourt with a guy who is a Hall of Famer. So that's what I got to say about the Blazers situation. Shout out to the Kings. Harrison Barnes was like 6 for 6 from 3. I saw Buddy Hield hit some crazy shots. The amount of pressure that De'Aaron Fox puts on defenses with his speed is crazy. Davion Mitchell, quiet like night offensively, but defensively he is a wreck. He's all over the place. Rashawn Holmes hitting the glass good. Tyrese Halliburton struggled, but he's not going to struggle on a consistent basis. He'll figure it out. I think this team is also like the Timberwolves, where they have this stigma on them that they're not going to be good. Oh, it's the Kings. Oh, it's the Timberwolves. But this is a year where, like, even those teams, to me, looking on paper, I wouldn't be surprised if they held their own. Not saying they're going to, not saying they're guarantees. They definitely could fall out of it. One thing those two organizations do good is screw things up. But we have to start. We cannot look at Timberwolves, Kings, even the Pistons, like I said earlier, as teams that you're just going to walk over. It's only like 1 or 2 of those teams this year. And then the game I didn't watch at all, the Jazz versus Thunder. Jazz took care of business. Rudy Gobert had a double-double, did his thing. It looked like Donovan Mitchell struggled from the field, at least. So, but the Jazz are a team, again, where I think they're going to do kind of similar things that they did last year. Rudy 16 and 21. Hell of a night for him. And yeah, Donovan Mitchell 3 of 10 from 3, 6 of 17. But they still came out with a 20-point win. Thunder, their young guys was cool. Okay, nothing crazy from Shea. D. Baisley, solid. Josh Giddey looks like he struggled from the field. 2 of 7, 2 of 10 for Lou Dort. Those guys are going to have to definitely shoot the ball better as a team and individually. But that was the one game I didn't watch. Didn't want to leave those 2 teams out for my Jazz and Thunder fan. That's my nightly recap of the first night of the NBA. The NBA is officially back. We're going to be doing a lot of this, y'all. Doing a lot of recap or trying to talk about as much as I can. Like I said, this is the first night, so I wanted to cover every single game and at least give a few words for every fan that's a fan of these teams and whatnot. But usually what we're going to do is anytime I feel like it's worth talking about some games that I was watching or excited about or I seen something that caught my eye, I'm going to try to consistently give y'all something every day, every other day on covering the NBA. This is NBA Weekly. Might turn into like NBA Daily or NBA Every Other Day, NBA Mornings. I'm going to try to figure out a name, like Cup of Basketball, like something that's not corny. But, you know, they say Cup of Joe or Morning Joe, like a morning cup of coffee. I'm going to try to find something to put on here so that I can do these morning recaps with you guys. My own version of like First Take or Kyle and Cowherd, The Herd. You know what I mean? Where they get on morning radio and they talk and discuss things. It's my own little version we'll do consistently. We also going to be doing some NBA Weekly mailbag stuff. So get y'all questions and opinions and concerns ready. Because we'll do that this weekend. I know a lot of y'all going to have some early overreactions about your favorite players and favorite teams. I love that. Like I said, we here to overreact, baby. We ain't got nothing else to do but to watch these games and overreact a shit ton. I'm with it. I know y'all are with it. Appreciate y'all for watching. If you're new, subscribe. As always, I support and encourage dialogue. So let me know what y'all thinking on this first night of the NBA. Tomorrow, we still got a couple teams, like I said, that we haven't seen. The Clippers, Mavericks, Hawks. That's going to be exciting. So, as always, I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly. Until next time, peace.